Joining me now on set is Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, Democrat from Missouri. Thank you so much, Congressman, for being here. So I got to start with, of course, what's going on Congress. There's this now shutdown fight that seems to be looming. What do you have to see in this legislation for you to back it? And do you see any sort of scenario that you would want to shut down the government?
Well, I think it's important for everybody in the country to realize that we have been frozen out of every discussion on every major issue. The Republicans have been meeting amongst themselves, and our leadership with Hakeem Jeffries, they've not had any role in anything. So if we're going to talk about trying to get something done for the nation, which I think all of us would like to do, we're going to have to be at the table. And the Republicans are going to have to let us participate at a level where there are things that we can get for our constituents. And if that doesn't happen, unfortunately, I think the Republicans will shut it down.
Last year, you said that a government shutdown would do unnecessary harm to the economy and hurt workers across the country. Are you willing to withhold support? It sounds like you're saying you are, even if that means shutting down the government. I know you're saying Republicans would do it, but that would also be a decision by Democrats.
Yes, but the Republicans can stop it. All they have to do is invite Hakeem Jeffries and our leadership to the table. And I think if they're about doing that, and actually genuinely negotiating, there's no way we're not going to be supportive. But if we're left out of if a bill appears, as they have been doing since January, without our fingerprints on it as well, no deal.
So is all you want a seat at the table, or do you want specific things?
Well, yeah, but yes, there are some specific things we're going to ask
for. What
are
they?
Well, I'll leave that to the Speaker to make the Minority Leader to make public.
Okay. Well, I know you're calling the Speaker, but maybe he'll be the Speaker one day. I want to read to you something from the New York Times, an opinion columnist, Ezra Klein. He wrote this over the weekend. I am quite certain that this moment deserves real opposition, that Democrats, morally speaking, should not fund a government that Donald Trump is turning into a tool of personal enrichment and power. But I am not certain the Democrats can win a shutdown. I am not certain that they have the leaders they need. Are Democrats doing a good enough job right now explaining to people why it might be there might be a situation and a need to stop funding the government and get in the way of that process?
Well, we do plan to use every tool available to stand up for the American people in the funding of the government. Some of the things that the big, ugly bill didn't address, or if they address it to a point where they hurt people, some of those things are going to have to be reversed. And look, I mean, henceforth, fire with fire. And that's there's no way around it. The Republicans are going to continue to try to attempt to take congressional seats. They're not going to let us participate in the funding of the government. So there's going to be fire to fire.
You're saying fire to fire, but let's remember, of course, back in March that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, that he got a lot of pushback from Democrats because essentially he allowed this bill to go forward without having Democrat support. How confident are you that Democrats in the Senate and in the House are going to be on the same page that you just laid out? Trust
me, they will be. Understand that Senator Schumer, I got this from his own mouth, Senator Schumer made the decision he made because he could not imagine what President Trump would do if all of us were out of the picture, if everybody was gone and the government shut down. And I think he had some cause to be nervous about that. But I don't think you're going to find any dissension among Democrats if we come to the point where we're not getting anything that we want in the legislation, or if they ignore us altogether. It's a shutdown D.C. time.
So Senator Schumer, you're saying, has assured you that if he's essentially in the same position that he was in back in March, that he will shut down the government?
No. What he said to me was, can you imagine what would have happened if we had allowed Donald Trump to be in Washington, roaming around, doing all kinds of things with Congress gone and not in session? So, I think Senator Schumer is one of the smartest politicians around.
Yeah.
He knows how to deal with these issues. And what he did the last time was not as popular, but I think there's little doubt in my mind that all the Democrats are going to be walking down the same street.
Okay. I want to also ask you about our latest NBC News poll. It shows that the Democratic Party, is actually less popular than the Republican Party. As Democrats try to push back against President Trump's agenda, do you really think it's resonating with Americans given this polling and the way that people are viewing the Democratic Party?
Well, yeah, we need to improve our image, but at the same time, it's important to know somebody is driving Donald Trump's numbers down in him trying to redistrict in Missouri. If you look at the polling that we've just done, there's nobody supporting it. Nobody, not Republicans, not Democrats, not independents. And so he's continuing to do these unpopular things, and we're the ones putting him in a position that he's doing it. So I think we're still fighting him on every turn.
Yeah. I want to now, of course, turn you to another fight, which is redistricting. We see Republicans, specifically in your state, are forging ahead with an effort to redraw the map. Your state in particular might be drawn away. You said that you're still going to run for re-election regardless of what happens with the maps. But I wonder to you, why is it important to continue to run for re-election if, in fact, Republicans try to essentially draw you away from your constituents?
Well, I think they're trying to move my voters away because they don't like the way they voted. And so their position is, we'll put our voters in there because we don't like the ones he has. And they're doing it in the mid-decade for no reason other than pure politics. There's nothing that would justify doing this. The census has not been taken. We have no idea whether 800,000 people will be in each of the districts in Missouri. We know nothing. So we're going to end up having lawsuits filed as quickly as we can. And what I hope they also understand, with fire, California, New York, Michigan, Maryland, and other states are going to be ready to do the same thing if they continue down this road.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Are Democrats' efforts, do you think, to redraw the map an attack on democracy? As you said, that Republicans' attacks have been an attack on democracy.
Well, no. Let's keep in mind that we are responding to the movement to demolish democracy.
But is it a race to the bottom?
Well, if you end up fighting fire with fire, ultimately you'll only have ashes. However, you know, I'm hoping we don't get to that place, and eventually we're going to need, I hope, new leaders who are not trying to destroy the democracy and this nation.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping, of course, as we all are, that it doesn't just all turn to ash. So thank you so much, Congressman Emanuel Cleaver of Missouri.
Good to be with you.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.